Hello, David. Hello, Alyosha. I want to make a few comments on your podcast review of Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Let me start by saying that I really don't want to get into fighting over who's right in interpreting Peterson. I'm not really interested in being right about my interpretations of Peterson. What I'm more interested in is discussing ideas as ideas and discussing their values, independently of whether they are now Peterson's ideas or not. Now, I will attribute the following ideas to Peterson simply because I got inspired to them by Peterson, on the one hand. And on the other, I think that they're compatible with his bigger picture, with his grand narrative, with the place where he's coming from and thinking from. So I have tried to take into account his entire oeuvre, most of his lectures and his written materials. So whatever interpretation I come up with that I find to be more interesting or in some way more rewarding than some of the interpretations you suggested, whatever interpretation I come up with, I will try to make compatible with his bigger picture, at the very least. And another principle that I'm following when I'm interpreting Peterson is, whenever I don't know what someone is saying, what he actually means in a specific context, I just try to think about an issue for myself. I just try to figure it out what the most reasonable position on a specific topic might be, independently of what the author has to say. And then I come back to reading the author again and see whether what I find to be the most reasonable conclusion on a specific topic might not in some way be compatible with what the author is saying. And if one of the available interpretations of the author is somewhere on the lines of what I find to be the most interesting, most compelling view on a specific subject, then I usually tend to attribute this position to the author, even though it is one of several possible interpretations. But I assume the author was right. I assume he saw things in a proper way. And that's the second principle that I'm following in my interpretations. But again, I really don't want to get into fighting over who has the right interpretation of Peterson. I don't think this is important. Peterson is not that important as a person. I think it's much more interesting to discuss ideas as ideas and to discuss their merit, and whatever they have to teach us about reality, independently of who holds them. I'm saying this might be a waste of time, you think, but I think it's important because it seems to me that the present day discourse in general is much too focused on who says what, and then fighting about whether one has really interpreted someone right or wrong. And I don't quite get that. I don't understand why. Why would it be so important to truly know what someone says or someone means, and then fight over it? I really don't get this point. And it might make sense globally as a society to move a bit towards more problem-oriented thinking and not so much camp and person-oriented thinking, where the first thing we look for is whether we agree with someone or not, and whether someone is part of our group or not. This is, by the way, something Ken Wilber said about critics of his own work, that unfortunately most of it he found to be not really applicable to his own views. He just didn't recognize his own views in the criticism, even though he agrees with a lot of the ideas that are being presented as suggestions to deal with the actual problems. He just thinks that his ideas have not been taken up properly. So he suggested once that people should focus more on specific issues, come up with their own constructive approach, their own ideas on specific problems, and not so much try to interpret his views and insist that they got him right, because this is an endeavor where you can go wrong in two ways. You can have bad ideas on the one hand, and on the other hand you can attribute ideas illegitimately to someone. So you can be actually wrong on two accounts. If you focus on the validity of ideas themselves, you can be wrong on only one account, whether the ideas actually in some way are useful to match reality and fit reality. This is the introduction.